Hello everyone, welcome to the Condor Station. I'd like to give you a little bit of history and background our Condor recovery program, and then I will answer any questions you might have. I will start with some history. In 1987, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service captured the last condor in the wild and put it into a breeding program. Imagine that was the last wild condor, and no one knew if the species could recover. Fortunately, the surviving condors made it and produced offspring. Now, after more than 17 years, there are 149 condors living in captivity and 99 flying free in California, Arizona, and Baja, Mexico. More birds are being released into the wild whenever possible, and we know that at least 5 pairs of birds are mating in the wild. So that's good news. Now you can guess that we want to keep track of birds in the wild, so how do we do that? We use different tracking systems, but now GPS, global positioning systems attached to the birds give us our best information. Just so you can appreciate our work, think of trying to attach one of the units to a bird with 9-foot wingspan. The wings could come close to knocking you out, and the beak is as sharp as a sharpest knife in your kitchen. This part of the job can be challenging. Anyway, GPS gave us a lot of data, geographic coordinates within 40 feet for up to 16 hours a day. This is very specific and useful information. One thing we've learned is that condors flying a lot more distant than any day that we ever knew. We also discovered something that's very interesting and potentially even more helpful. We found that species is intelligent and much more complicated than we thought. Until now, we hadn't really known how much condors actually have to learn to survive in the wild, but we now know that they do indeed have to learn to survive. An example of this comes from one of the mistakes when we met in early days of raising baby condors. We had humans taking care of babies. The people wore puppets on their hands and looked like adult condors, but they didn't act like apparent condors. They just used the puppets to give the babies food. Then those babies were put together with other babies and have no contact with adult condors. Now we realized later after that, because of this approach, the baby condors didn't learn to be afraid of people. After they were released, they would approach people without any fear at all, begging for food at campgrounds and things like that. They acted like pets instead of wild animals. Obviously, this wasn't good. After watching adult condors with babies, we realized that parent condors taught the baby a lot about being cautious and defending themselves. The parent condors spend a lot of time harassing baby, pecking at them and pushing them away when they're too curious. And this teaches them to be careful and to protect themselves. So now we consider this in raising baby condors, or the baby in the program are raised either by an adult condor or by a human wearing a puppet that looks like a condor. The humans are trained to act like a parent condor, as I said, picking and harassing the baby. We found that baby condor raised in this way actually taught to be cautious are much more likely to avoid human. Another area we've learned a lot about it because of GPS monitoring is the way groups of condors relate and work together. Condors are scavengers, so they need to look for a dead animal to eat. Now, you probably never thought of it, but that's not the same as animal that hunts for food. Think about it. A scavenger is dependent on finding a dead animal to eat at the right time or it goes hungry. So what we found is that condors actually share information about good location for food. That's actually a kind of a apprenticeship where condors work together. A more experienced bird helps a less experienced bird learn where to find food. It's not really something you imagine birds doing, is it? Another surprising point is how social these birds are. Through the information from GPS unit, we found that the birds actually do like to socialize. One group of birds will travel around 160 miles down to the coast to visit another group and hang out. That's something many of us can relate to, although we might not travel 160 miles all that often, even to visit a good friend. So that's some background on the condors. Why is this important? Well, first of course, we like to have a wild condors living without interference from us. But in a broader sense, we can always learn. As I've mentioned, we found that condors are very intelligent and their lives are more complex than we realized. So we never know what else we might learn and how this information might apply to other animals' problems or even people's problems for that matter. 6b. Good morning and welcome to the program. According to a report out this week, the United States is still a nation of entrepreneurs. The number of single person businesses or people who are self employed have increased to 7.5 million, up from 7 million last year, according to U.S. Census Bureau. This morning, we'll look at the trends towards self-employment and freelancing that are happening all over the United States. But first, let's go out on the street and talk to some people who are on the front lines. What do you do? I have 3 different jobs. I'm a substitute teacher, I write for the website, and I volunteer at an art museum. Wow, how do you juggle all that? Well, it's not all that bad. I only teach for a couple of days a week, 2 to 3 days a week usually, and I do the website work at home often during the evenings, so there's not that much conflict. You could call it variety. So do you enjoy working in 3 different places? Right now, yeah, I really do, especially with the teaching. When you are sub, you don't get involved in the day-to-day stuff or the paperwork or the politics. Just going and do the job and then you go home. And just flexible. If I don't want to work, I don't have to. If I feel that I need to work more, I ask for more teaching hours. If I had a full-time job, I think I'd get burned out and I wouldn't be able to do the other works, which I really enjoy. What about health benefits? Well, I get health insurance through my wife's job, so I don't have to worry about that. Tell me about your job. I've just set up my own baking business. I make cakes for special occasions, weddings, and that sort of thing. Really? Why did you do that? Well, I had a full-time job, but I got laid off, so I decided to go out on my own. And how's this going? Well, I don't have many expenses because I'm living and working at my parents' house, so I don't have to pay rent. It's going okay. I'm getting by. It takes a while, to get known. It's been a learning experience. I've learned a lot about managing a business. What is your plan in the future? Well, I need to work on marketing, getting out there, selling myself. I'm not very good at that part of it. I'd like to work with a partner that could do that. Maybe I'd like to have my own place someday. But right now, I'm just taking it a day at a time. Back to the studio now, and if you've just joined us, the subject is a recent report that shows 17.5 million self-employed people in the United States. We're talking to labor specialist Jenny Huang. Welcome to the program, Jenny. Thank you. Jenny, can you tell us who these 17.5 million people are? Well, there are different types of people in this category. There are the entrepreneurs, like the young lady that you interviewed, the ones that you have their own person business. They are the ones we usually think of when we think of self-employment. But then there are freelancers who might go to work in different places or work on a contract basis. And there are the people who are employees but also work for themselves part-time, like the first person you spoke to. What kind of work do these people do? Well, the greatest rise in self-employment has been in professional and business services that would include people like freelance web designers, marketing consultants, and so on. The second biggest category is construction workers. That would include carpenters, painters, electricians, and so on, who works for themselves. And why do you think self-employment is on the rise? Are we really a nation of entrepreneurs, or is there something else going on here? Well, some of it is economic. There are people who've been laid off, so they decided to go out on their own. Another reason is growth of software industry and the media, where they always use a lot of freelancers, writers, programmers, and so on. There are a lot of people working in those areas now, but there has also been a change in auditors. There are more people who want the advantages of self-employment. They're finding it preferable being able to manage their own time, for example. They want to have more control over their own schedules. Exactly. What are the downsides of self-employment? Well, a lot of people underestimate the amount of time you have to put into a business side of things, especially marketing and especially at the beginning. It's not enough to be good at something, you have to be able to sell yourself. Some people should just never go into self employment because marketing isn't their strength. The other thing is to be organized, especially with your time. You have to be able to manage your time. You need a business plan and you really have to be very organized to be a successful freelancer.